everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Bella. Thank you for tuning in today. In this episode, we are focusing on something that's a huge part of every remodel, but often gets overlooked: the behind the scenes work that needs to happen before construction begins. We'll discuss permits, local codes, inspections, and even those unexpected costs that may arise along the way. To help us understand all of it, I'm joined by Alana Busse from Alana Busse Construction. She is a licensed general contractor and designer with over 20 years of experience, and she's known for helping homeowners bring their dream spaces to life with smart planning and beautiful results. Hi, Alana, welcome. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think it'll be helpful for anyone planning a remodel. So let's begin. Let's start with the foundation. What are permits and why are they required in most remodeling projects?
So permits are required by either your city or your county, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. And so they're normally pulled through building and safety through the correct office of wherever your home jurisdiction is. And they're required to make sure that everything's done up to code and it's all safe for your family to live in. And it's someone else just double checking the work and making sure everything is done properly.
That's a really helpful explanation. I think a lot of people don't realize how much happens before any work even starts. Are there any types of projects that homeowners usually don't realize need a permit but actually do?
A lot of projects need permits. So typically there's about four permits that are pulled on a project. So you have a mechanical permit, which could be installing a bathroom fan or a hood in a kitchen. So people don't realize that those are part of the permit. Then typically you'll have a plumbing permit. So that could be for your sink and your faucet. It could be a toilet. It could even be a water line to a refrigerator. Electrical permits. So even if you're just adding some lovely pendant lights like that are behind you, those would still be on the permit. And then a building permit. So a building permit is not just for if you're doing structural and like wood framing like you see behind me, but it's also if you're going to be doing more than one sheet of drywall, typically that'll also be on a building permit. So people just often don't realize that all these little things are part of their permits and go on their permits. So it's not just if you're doing a big structural project and a big addition, but it's also when you're doing a simple bathroom remodel, even a hall bathroom, or just a kitchen gut and replace, there's typically permits that will be needed.
That's such a good point. It's one of those details that could easily get missed without someone experienced guiding the way. Once a project is ready to move forward, what does the permitting process look like? What steps are involved before the construction even begins?
So it's going to depend on what building and safety we have to go to. Sometimes we have to go in person and then we submit. Sometimes it's just a form, sometimes it's a form and plan, sometimes it's a very large set of plans. Other times they have to be submitted online, but we do take care of handling all of that for you. So we take care of whatever paperwork the city requires, whatever plans the city requires. We submit that. Some permits you're given just over the counter within 20 minutes, kind of thing. And then when you have larger projects like big additions, maybe you can wait 4 to 6 weeks to get permits. And then it's also going to depend on what jurisdiction. Some cities are a little bit quicker and have a little bit more time to push things through. And then other cities, they're a little bit more backed up.
Thank you for breaking that down so clearly. It makes the process feel a lot less overwhelming. Permits are important, but they can sometimes come with delays or complications. What are some common challenges that tend to come up during this stage?
I would say that the codes or the requirements that the cities are requiring are constantly changing or being updated, or there's new little forms. So sometimes just making sure you have all the correct forms or tests that the city needs, paperwork, so that you can process your permits very efficiently. So that's what I would say one of the challenges. And we're now switching over, I should say most cities and counties are switching over to an online submittal process. So where we were before in county, when we submitted, we went in person for a simple kitchen or a bathroom, and we'd get probably be in and out in 30 minutes, 45 minutes kind of thing. Now we're submitting online, and typically that's going to now take about a week. So it's just kind of being aware of that you do have to submit your permits a little bit earlier than you would have, especially when you're doing an online submittal, because it does take a little bit longer than when we used to be able to go in person.
You worked in several cities and countries across the region. How much do local rules or requirements affect how you plan and manage a remodeling project?
Well, I think every city and county is a little bit different. So we just got to make sure that we know certain inspectors like things a very certain way. So we just make sure those are done those ways. And then it's just making sure we are planning our schedule properly, because some cities give you a 2 hour time window and they're very prompt and they show up within those 2 hours. And other times, some counties or cities give us a full day window. So we don't know if they're going to be there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sometimes we get a half day window. So we just got to be careful with our scheduling so that we can make sure we can get our inspection and then get buttoned up or getting that item covered up, and we balance that properly.
That makes a lot of sense. Having someone who knows how to navigate those rules sounds like a huge advantage. Are there any building codes that often catch people off guard, something they are usually not aware of, but that ends up being important?
So, one of the things people don't realize is not only does the project and the space you're working in have to be built to code, but because you've pulled permits, sometimes they'll make you upgrade a few other things throughout the home. So typically what that is, you have to make sure you have your smoke detectors, which are good to have anyhow, which most jurisdictions require one in each bedroom. A bedroom is any room that basically has a closet in it. So even if you use it as a home office or a gym, it's still technically going to be a bedroom. You want a smoke detector in any hallways leading to bedrooms. And then you need a carbon monoxide detector in each of the floors. So what I mean by floors is if you have a one-story house, you'd have one, 2 stories would have one on each story, and so on and so forth, kind of thing. So sometimes that catches people off guard. Or if you're doing a kitchen remodel, and a lot of times we have a door that leads to maybe a garage. In some jurisdictions, that door going from the house to the garage needs to be fire rated and on a self closing, so it closes automatically. Or if you're doing outdoor projects near pools, some of those fences have to be closing automatically. So there's some little upgrades here and there that the city is going to require. And that's just going to make sure that your house is just a little bit safer. It's not going to be a big cost or a bunch of things, but just little things like the smoke detectors. And so just making sure that we got all of those things covered.
I didn't know that either. So I'm sure many listeners will appreciate you sharing these insights. Let's shift to the financial side. What types of unexpected costs can come up once a project is underway?
Well, once we demo, we don't know exactly what's behind the walls. So if you have maybe an older home that might have a little bit of termite damage or live termites that maybe have to be dealt with, if the previous builder was a little more creative, we'll say, with the electrical or the plumbing, if we do uncover anything that's unsafe, we do bring it to your attention, and then we would want to move forward with trying to fix that item that is unsafe. So occasionally you run into those items, not too often. Most of the time when you're doing that, you actually, the homeowners know they're coming, say, well, the electrical doesn't quite work right in this kitchen, and I can't run my toaster and my blender at the same time, or my toilet and shower drains seem to back up, or something like that. And then once we demo it, we find the cause of what the homeowners were explaining that was an issue.
How do you help homeowners prepare for those possible surprises? Is there a way to plan ahead for them?
Yeah, so we go through with the homeowners what maybe surprises we see coming up on their project as much as we can and plan through. So it could be maybe cutting some holes in the drywall and seeing what's behind the walls before we get started. It could be taking a camera down the waistlines before we get started, or using ground penetrating radar to locate certain things in the slab so that we can see what's behind these items. And then if we can see what's behind it, then we can pre-plan for them. and make it go a little bit smoother.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. If someone is on a tight timeline, maybe they need the project completed by a specific date, is there anything they can do to help the permitting process move more smoothly?
Well, if we can submit the plans in person, that tends to definitely move the permitting process a little bit quicker. Some jurisdictions will still allow for that for smaller projects. Some will allow for any size projects and some won't allow it. So it just depends what jurisdiction we're in to if we can do that. And then we just want to make sure we move as quick as possible. So as soon as you sign a construction contract, that we have everything ready to go so that we can get those permits as quickly as we can. Or if you're trying to do like a big project, but maybe trying to do it in phases and get some bathroom done before anything else, we can also break that off into a separate permit so we can process just to get that bathroom finished and then submit for the kitchen and the addition and the windows and everything else separate so that the bathroom permit comes through really quick. We can move on that while we're waiting for the rest of the permits.
Perfect. And my next question is, what is the difference between working with a contractor who understands building codes from the beginning versus one who figures it out as the project goes?
Well, it tends to be a lot cheaper to plan ahead than to try to wing it onto the spot. The other thing is you always want to pull permits, and it tends to be the people that don't know about permits tend not to pull them, and that can cause issues later on. And the issues later on can be anything from you have to rip out everything to prove it was done right to the city, you're paying fines and fees and permit costs later on, or you can even have an issue with possibly your homeowner's insurance because now you've done an illegal remodel on your property. And when you go to sell the home, you'll have to declare that it wasn't done with a permit. So if you did an addition and you didn't do a permit, then you're not getting that square footage counted and recorded, and you're not getting that benefit.
Thank you so much. And finally, if someone is about to begin a remodel, what is one piece of advice you'd share with them before they get started?
It's probably just to be patient in the planning process because the more patient you are in the planning process, the more you can get figured out and planned out, the quicker your actual construction will go. So if you're talking to someone and they're like, we can start next week and we'll get this demoed, but you have nothing planned, that project will probably take twice as long before it's done than if you spent time planning everything, waited for the stuff to come in, got your permits, then started, because then there's less that's going to be an issue during construction. So, really just focus a lot on the planning process, and that'll really help get you through everything in a more timely fashion.
That's really smart. This has been such a valuable conversation. Every part of the process you've explained make things feel more manageable. Thank you so much, Alana. I think a lot of people focus on the design and the final results, which is exciting, but as you've shown, having a solid plan in place from the start makes all the difference. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
I think that's it. I think it's just the more people understand how important permits are and how they're really out there, the city and the county is really out there. They're on your side. They're making sure everything is safe for your family, everything's done properly, and that it's really for your benefit to get the permits. It's not for anyone else's benefit besides the homeowner to make sure that they really have these permits and that everything was done properly on their home. It's a big investment and you want it done right.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you to everyone listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.